Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, and your host for this summit. My guest today is Tricia Mary Lee. Tricia is currently co-vice president of the Sacred Dance Guild. She's trained in body-centered movement therapy and dance therapy, as well as healing touch modalities of reflexology, Reiki, and massage. She confesses to enjoying dance as a lifelong love affair from her childhood through every age and stage of her life, recognizing both the joy and freedom of creative physical expression, as well as the deep, soothing power of breath and movement. Following on from her early teaching years in England, she felt called to study and train as a natural health practitioner before moving to Australia. This path into healing opened her to the self-healing potential of the body, as well as to the powerful presence of spiritual healing energy. Marrying her healing and spirituality with her love of dance guided her to search and study further until she discovered sacred dance whilst working with Indigenous dancers in far northwest Australia. From here, she then joined the Sacred Dance Guild and was lucky enough to receive a scholarship to dance with them in their 2008 festival in Connecticut in the USA, a glorious gathering of dancers across all faiths and dance forms. Since then, she's traveled within Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, and also to France and the Findhorn community in Scotland. She now works primarily with sacred healing dance for women and has organized 3 sacred dance retreats in Bali. She is currently coordinating and choreographing the global water dancers in her hometown of Busselton, Western Australia. Tricia works closely with the Sacred Mystery and has authored the Sacred Mystery Manuscripts, which contain revelations and inspirations for your sacred feminine soul. Welcome, Tricia. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you.
We're going to begin with an invocation, so I'll let Tricia begin and we'll follow.
Thanks, Leslie.
That was beautiful. And thank you for being here, Tricia. It's so nice to have the opportunity to speak to you.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. And thank you for organizing these amazing summits. It's just wonderful for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm enjoying meeting all these wonderful women that I've had the pleasure to interview. Yeah. So let's just begin with a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your journey to dance. How did you become involved with dance? Have you always danced, or this was something that happened later on?
I think I've always enjoyed dancing from childhood. Sort of in England, we had English country dancing. We had, I did ballet lessons and tap and contemporary for a short while, but I didn't really like the formality of that structured dance, and I didn't feel that I was a performance dancer, but I've always loved to move. And so through every age and stage, yes, I have danced. So, you know, the mating dances in the 60s, 70s, you know, the twist and the shake and rock and roll, all those dances, rituals that you go through with partnerships, sexual mating rituals. And then, you know, as an adult into motherhood, the dance of cradling your child, of, you know, of moving and playing and that freedom of expression with little children. I also taught early childhood, so I had a lot of playtime, a lot of exploration, a lot of creativity there. And then as part of my healing journey, I began to realize the deeper connection that the body was teaching me, I think, and particularly through the reflexology, which was my first doorway. So understanding on the Chinese, you know, way of thinking about health, the importance of the feet to our whole bodies. So that is very much an integral part now of my understanding of what we're doing when we're dancing, whether we're, you know, using the ball of the foot, the heel, the parts of the foot are very important. And that blessing of the feet, that gratitude for the feet in the dance would be part of my rituals of respect, which I'm going to share later. And then I think we are danced. So when I've needed a different dance, suddenly that dance has appeared on the horizon. So when I was feeling quite sad and lonely and suffering with the grief through the loss of my father, flamenco came in. And that was just perfect. It just gave me the rhythm and the strength and the energy. And then as I moved through flamenco, then Oriental dance, belly dancing came in. I would never in a million years have dreamed that I would have that opportunity or even want that opportunity, but I just loved it. And I loved dancing with the girls that I danced with. I did perform, and I found that to be a very, very empowering experience. And I have taught on that level. And then I moved through, and I work continuously with Tai Chi and the breath and the movement. That is a long-standing practice that I have as a daily practice. And so I continue with that. And then moving through menopause, I found I needed that more contemplative practice, that more grounding, deeper practice, as well as the sensuality of the Oriental dance. So at different stages of my life, yes, dance has been there as a great love and continues to infuse me because I love it and it makes me happy.
This sacred healing dance that you do, this is, I think, a modality that you've sort of created yourself from bringing all the things together. So maybe just give us kind of an overview of what that entails.
Yes,
what is it exactly?
Yeah. Sacred healing dance to me is the deepest, most sacred dance that we can perform because it comes from the soul. So first of all, we have to find our way to peel back the layers to discover our soul and how the soul can move us, how the soul can be our choreographer through our life. And the healing, you know, are we looking, when we're talking about sacred healing, we can be looking at healing from the sacred, our sense of the sacred, our sense of spirit beyond coming in and healing us, or we can look at what is happening now in our world of women especially, and that is the birthing of the sacred feminine energies, the rebirthing of our beautiful mother energies, of those feminine power energies that have been suppressed for many, many years. So we can look at bringing wholeness by that embrace of the feminine coming in alongside, you know, what has been. So we have this yin and yang rebalancing, coming into wholeness, because the lack of that has had a huge effect on us individually. You know, many women have health problems because that sense of the sacred feminine is not necessarily embedded in their understanding, in their being. So it can be very healing for women when they open to the power of the sacred feminine in the experiences that I've had.
So what are you healing? I mean, just maybe you can give us some examples of people that you've worked with. They don't have to be your own examples, but just different things that you're healing. You spoke about bringing back the sacred feminine and that yin energy, but more specifically, what types of things do people heal through this type of dance?
I think the healing is coming very much onto an emotional level. So allowing the emotions to manifest and to be felt within the body can affect healing organically, it can affect healing systemically, it can bring healing, you know, on the mental realm. So we're looking at the heart, mind, body, soul. We are looking for wholeness. And for every person, yes, that is going to be different. So we're not teaching sacred healing dance. We're working with individuals, and their journey to healing is unique to them. So I cannot teach a form or a modality. I am opening the door and creating the sacred space for the exploration of the inner self and the connection with a higher energy also. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think all healing is self-healing. I think as a healer, if we want to call ourselves that, it's more a facilitator, or it's more a way to show people a different way to access that energy. I'm just curious whether people come to you with something in mind, whether they come to you with with probably what comes out of it is much larger than what they thought they were going. That's often the case. You think you're healing something, but then you realize it's a whole different issue. I was just curious as to what kind of people are drawn to this. What, for those people who are not familiar with sacred dance, talk about maybe different reasons that women come, or even if it's not what they get out of it, but maybe what draws them to it in the first place.
I think a lot of women are drawn initially to the sacredness of dance, to the idea of sacred dance. And I am bearing in mind, I am working here with Australian women, and the culture here is very different for women, you know, than in perhaps other places of the world. So here, for the women, the life has been very tough. There has been a lack of tenderness, perhaps, and so compassion may be something that is not hugely evident, or is an emotion and experience which has been pushed down. And I've particularly experienced this. I've done a lot of work with aged care and with the reflexology, and the elderly where women have had tough lives, then there has not been the opportunity to soften, to become tender. And as they move towards the final departure stage, then compassion and tenderness is a really, really beautiful, powerful experience for them to access. And so the women who are coming out would be older women as a general rule, who maybe are beginning to be conscious of their need to make a spiritual connection, and it not be through a religion, but to look into the wider connection of what is coming next, you know, through menopause and muse to death and dying is a big sacred journey. And so I think there is a movement, there is an energy pushing people, drawing people, dancing women to begin to find a pathway that is deeper than the culture has maybe allowed, than the society has maybe you know, made available. So there is very much this quest for inner self, whether it's healing creaking bones, whether it's, you know, there's a lot of women on the cancer journey. There are a huge amount of women in Australia suffering with fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders, inflammatory disorders. These kinds of conditions can be helped, can be calmed through working with sacred dance as a healing modality.
Well, then I love the way you put it, a softening of the body, because I think that definitely we think of dance giving us flexibility, but yes, it softens us on so many levels, perhaps. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Let's talk about rituals of respect.
What
What do you mean by rituals
what
of
do
respect?
I mean by that? Well, I guess I am very, for my own practice, I have daily rituals, and I find that that helps me. So, you know, I will have a specific ritual first thing in the morning, which is a dance ritual, which is a movement and breath ritual, and a prayer ritual. So that starting ritual helps me connect with my sacredness as a woman, with my sacred body, with my beingness beyond the physical realm, but within the physical realm. So I then take that, and I think as women, we do many things, and if we separate the sacred from the secular, then a lot of our time we are separate. I consider rituals of respect to be a pathway to holding the sacred throughout the day. And so the sacredness of my domestic chores are still as valuable to me and as connected to me as, say, my prayer or my dance, my sacred dance. So in organizing small little rituals, and whether it's something within the body, whether it's the breath, whether it's an energy that I utilize, there are things that we can all do to create more sacred lives, I think, to create the everyday sacred with people, you know, so we're not doing it in a sacrosanct narrow space. We are doing it within the world, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. We can perform rituals of respect, which will help us to remember our sacredness of our bodies, of our being, of our connection with spirit.
We need to get to. It seems to me, if your sacred practice is something that you step out and do it over there, then it's not your life. And obviously some people will have more of a challenge with this depending upon how they lead their lives. But I would think the ultimate goal would be to sacred living, to be able to bring the sacred into everything that you do. I think you and I are very much aligned.
It might be the age. It's not something I've always connected with, but it's something that as my sacred journey has evolved, then it's something that I find myself doing more and more. And I would and you know what? It just makes my day so much more beautiful. And so I would, like to share that. I would encourage that, and I can. That's give ideas.
It's a matter of, first of all, desiring it, and then setting up your life like that. For me, I think that's a big part of why I live in Egypt. I stepped out of Western society because it's difficult. It's difficult when you have to do a 9-to-5 job, or, there's certain expectations. So for me to step out of that, maybe I had to completely leave that, but I live a life where I have my rituals when I get up in the morning, which is why I don't do things in the morning, because there's this whole way that I start my day. And I think it's not easy if you're in a society that's very structured, but I'm sure that there are ways to do it in that setting as well. So it's about wanting it and then finding a way to get there.
Yes, but you're right, Leslie. It is the time, allocating that time. For me, again, I have to start my day properly. So I have a set ritual which has room for creative movement and expression. It's not as rigid ritual, but it is a ritualistic time that I use to make sure that my soul is connecting, and that I'm connecting with my soul. So it's a very important commitment to my own daily living. Yeah.
And I think that that's, again, is a good word, commitment, and to yourself, to your, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way.
Because, you know,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we are talking about healing, I mean, ultimately, ideally, we would want to be not manifesting disharmony or, you know, fractious situations or illness. So I see it as an investment in my wellness, in my wholeness. So it's kind of like I'm getting in there first before there is a chance for disharmony, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that if each one of us would heal ourselves, the world would be a perfect place. Unfortunately, I think that, yeah, everyone is worried about what everybody else is doing. If we took the time to heal ourselves, I really do believe if we were all in personal harmony, that would create a larger global harmony.
It would. And just referencing back to what you know, you moved from your culture to Egypt. I moved from England to here. And that gave me maybe the space and gave you to revisualize, reconnect with a different maybe way of organizing how you be human, how you be woman. And I feel that opportunity for me was transformational. Mm-hmm. But it takes courage. It takes courage to own your journey, to own your reality, the light and the dark, the, you know, the winter and the summer, the yin yang. It takes courage to own that. But in traveling, sometimes you are pushed up to have to confront what is hard, what is locked in that needs to come out. It does take a lot of courage.
I think walking a spiritual path in general takes courage, but Carolyn Meese said that the greatest spiritual lesson is to leave your tribe. And I think that that's true, because that's when you see your programming, because of your expectations. You know, like people in Egypt, people are generally not on time. But in Western culture, this is such a big thing. And so you see expats coming here and just being completely disturbed by the fact that people are not on time. Well, they're not. Mm. They don't value time. They value their own rhythm within a bigger picture. And that's when you realize that you're annoyed every time someone's late, then you realize where your buttons are or what your own programming is. So I think it is a great opportunity if you leave your culture, whatever that is, and step into another one. That's when you see, oh, hang on, these are not universal laws. These are cultural situations or expectations. And once you step out of them, and then hopefully you can find somewhere that your own personal rhythm matches that of the culture, or not, but at least you begin to see what is yours and own it and work through it.
For me, I agree. And for me, one of the biggest lessons has been how I have learned and perceived the different earth energies, because the earth energy in England is very, very different from the earth energy here. And because of my interactions with the indigenous people and the culture here, then, you know, the sacredness of the earth here has become a much deeper experience for me than it was before I came here. So, you know, Australia has afforded me many, many beautiful opportunities, and that deepening, that shamanic sense of the rhythm of the earth and the seasons and all of that has been enriched because I am not in my traditional original birth culture.
And you travel. You've traveled these places. They're all going to have different energies. So I think it is that you become more sensitive when you have more experiences. This,
Yes.
just going back for a moment to these rituals of respect, is this
Yeah.
related to the book that you've written, the Sacred Mystery Manuscripts? Is that something that is included in that, or maybe where that came from?
I think it is a product, a growth from that, because the Sacred Mystery Manuscripts set me on my path, on my sacred quest to the great mystery, as opposed to a spiritual or religious path. So the rituals of respect have come in response to that depth of understanding of the sacred mystery and the whole of life, about the soul being like the earth's soil, being the garden of our lives. So yes, there is a lot of information there, but the rituals of respect aren't necessarily there. Silence and stillness are there very much, and they are equally, you know, valuable as rituals of sacred healing dance.
And I'll put a link to your book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm
thank
excited to read it.
It
So
was a
let's
very
talk.
exciting thing to write.
Yes, I think personally, writing, I think, is that place where you become aware of what's inside of you by bringing it out. Sometimes you can see, at least the information as it came out for me, were things I didn't necessarily know. So it was a surprise to to see everything that was coming out.
Yes, spirit uses you. You're just the scribe, maybe, for at that stage. And that certainly was my experience with the Sacred Mystery Manuscripts, because it wasn't something I went into intellectually, having read about. It was just something that dropped in, and I had to work with. And yeah, it's very beautiful.
I look forward to reading that. Let's talk a little bit about your healing path, about your own experiences with using dance and grief, moving through grief with the dance.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mentioned that because, again, I think, you know, grief is one of the emotions that perhaps in Australia or in Western culture we're perhaps not so good at allowing. We don't have set rituals, and so, well, as I think I said earlier, when my father passed over, I came across flamenco, and that helped lift me. And then I was sort of going through further grief, and I went into Oriental dance, and that helped me. But my son passed over just almost 2 years ago, and in order to make meaning of that, in order for it not to be wasted, I tried to take it as a gift. And that deep grief, that sense of loss, I documented. And every day I connected with where my body was with that grief process. I wrote poetry, I danced, I moved, I breathed, I was still, but I documented it, and I just know that it helped me enormously to bring myself back to wholeness, because when you lose somebody that you deeply love, it leaves a big hole in your soul, doesn't it? It's, you know, it's a big emptiness. And so going into that space, not trying to avoid it, allowing it, but knowing that the dance could bring me out again, was a very, very powerful journey. So I have framed that into a program, if you like, an opportunity for other people to share. And my intention is to present. I'm part of a bereavement support group here in Bustleton, so I think it can be a part of that. But grief is not just about death, is it? We grieve at so many different ages and stages for different things, for different reasons. So I sense this bigger perspective of dancing through grief as women, because we need that emotion. We need that connection with the ocean of emotion, and the water imagery that came through as I was working with my own grief was just beautiful.
And I think you started by saying we don't have these rituals of grief. I think people have forgotten. In Egypt, they used to have professional mourners that would come to condolences. And I think part of their role was to allow, you know, emotion, like to move it through, to hold the space for the grief. And I see that here, where we have usually 3 days of condolences, and it's the women sitting together and the men sitting together. And I think by having that situation, you've created a space for people to cry or to sit and talk about the person or whatever they want to do. But I think we have, and that's becoming less prevalent at this point in time. So at some point, probably we won't have that anymore. But we don't have these rituals for grief. And it is the problem being that if you don't work through it, I think it stays with you forever, and possibly even through generations. I think we have so much grief. I know that this is an emotion that I hold, and I don't know where it's coming from because I haven't had that much loss in my life, but I feel this deep grief. So we need that. We need to be able to move through it and find ways to move through it, because if we don't, we're just passing it on through time to further and further generations.
When I track it back, which, you know, because I have spent a lot of time deeply working with it, you know, I feel the grief is there from our arrival into the human body. I think on one very deep level, the soul grieves for what she has left behind, for what she has lost in becoming an incarnated being.
Yes.
And I sense that that is a universal grief that we do experience. But have we got time for a little story? I do. Sure. I would love to share this little story. I was in Canada with Wendy Morell, who is the president of the Sacred Dance Guild, and she had scheduled us to go up north to this little town, Tomstown, Engelhart, for a weekend of sacred dance there with a little community church, because they were having it was an anniversary. I don't know if it was their 50 or 100. Anyway, so we traveled 8 hours or whatever up the road to get to this little town. And on the Sunday, we are leaving Wendy had chosen 2 dancers, 2 songs and dances. And the final one was Depart in Peace. And we sang that and danced it coming down the 2 aisles from the altar of this little church. It was a very moving dance, Depart in Peace. Later that day, I heard my son had died. Wow. Now, that I would have been singing that song about the time that he was passing. Now, if spirit ever works with us in one way or another, then that to me was just, the synchronicity of that was just so powerful. And so I could return to that dance and those words and know that I had danced him on his way. It was such a powerful experience. Wow. Sorry, I just wanted to share that.
That's a beautiful story. Yes.
Yes. So we just don't know. And that is what I say about we are danced. And you get that feeling of, yes, we dance, but our whole life is a dance, and we are danced to different places, to different experiences. And it's all part of our sacred journey.
And to participate. I think the fact that you were able to participate in your son's crossing by dancing him through that's empowering. And I mean, perhaps that's not the best word to use, but we want to do that. You also work with hospice. And I think, I mean, I'd like you to talk about that because I know very little about it. But to me, just the concept of it, to celebrate people through this transition is a wonderful idea.
Mm. Well, my work with hospice is sometimes with the palliative care clients and the hospice clients, sometimes with the carers who equally need support. So my primary modality is reflexology with them. So I am bringing comfort, reassurance, I'm bringing sacred touch through the feet. And with reflexology, we talk about soul to soul. So when somebody surrenders the soles of their feet, there is the possibility to access their soul. There is the possibility for deep spiritual connectivity. And equally I have worked with people at the very end stage to work, to work with their body and to help them depart in peace through giving thanks for each layer of their being is a very, very powerful dance.
Do you work with the families? Because it seems to me that that other piece of your son's death and the grief and working through that could be the other side of that coin, perhaps.
Yes, that is where I would like my work to evolve now, into that. I formalized my dance training last year because I knew I would not be able to go in and offer any program, any movement program in hospice unless I was accredited. It wasn't enough for me to have done it, to have felt it, to have known it. We're Australia, we need bits of paper, and we're not different from anywhere else. So last year I formalized my dance therapy training in New Zealand, which was a wonderful experience. And so now I have the professional framework to work with therapeutic dance and to take that into the bereavement support group.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. I mean, to be able, especially since you're doing the other side of it as well. Yeah. Let's talk about your retreats, your sacred dance retreats in Bali. Tell us a little bit about that. This sounds wonderful. I always get the notices and it sounds wonderful. I didn't realize you were the one organizing them. Yeah.
Have you been to Bali?
No, and everyone tells me, my astrocartography, everything says go to Bali. So,
well,
so when you said we were going to talk about that, I thought, okay, I need to hear about that.
Firstly, I need to honor, Bali as the culture that it is, which is what facilitates the energy for the women to gather and to explore deeply their sacred feminine selves. And a lot of my everyday sacred, my rituals of respect comes from my time in Bali, because in Bali they bless their shops in the morning with incense and rice. They bless all their dwellings. They bless that they have home temples. It is a living, ancient, sacred culture. And so it has taught me an enormous amount. I've been many times when I finally just connected the fact that that was where I wanted to bring women to dance. So we found a beautiful retreat space up a mountain, and we gather there. It's a good journey from the airport. It's a pilgrimage in its own right up the mountain, and it's the mountain is sacred in Bali. There are 2 little local temples a little way away, and we visit both the local temples. We have a dance studio which is pretty much open, elevated but open, to the outside because the climate is favorable. And we dance together, and we follow the retreat journey where we gather, we relax, we feel comfortable, so we can begin to let go. We can begin the inner journey of exploration. So we will have a day relaxing, then we will have a day releasing And we will have a fire ceremony in the evening, to the goddess Saraswati. She is one of the goddesses that we honor when we're up there. So we have a beautiful fire ceremony, which is laid out with flower petals, and it's just divine. And we dance there and do ceremony there to release. And then we come through, we sort of come down, then we start to come back up towards the end of the week, where we start to reflect, to revitalize, to prepare ourselves to return to our daily lives. So it's like a deep valley of sacred experience within which you are held and supported by the energy, the sacred energy, by the other women there, by the circling. It's just, it sends shivers down my spine. It is a most beautiful experience. And that space, it's, Bali is very, very gentle and fragrant and beautiful for women and for men. It is a beautiful place to visit.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think the importance of dancing together. Dance is such a great way to bring people together, to teach them about community and working together and that sort of thing. And I think doing a dance retreat is an excellent way to give sort of a glimpse into what that means to dance together and be in community like that.
Yes, which is it is a healing journey in its own right, but the sacredness, whether we're dancing in circle, whether we're dancing, just in pairs, whether we're free, whether it's ecstatic, whether it's quiet prayer, whether it's moving meditation outside, it's just so rich for us. I feel very, very enriched by being able to share that journey. It is one of the most beautiful things that I've been able to offer, I think, to the Sacred Dance Guild, because initially that is my contact. That is the area where, I have made friends with people who, are happy to travel for sacred dance.
Is it only open to people from the Sacred Dance Guild?
Oh, not at all. No. We've had other people come in as well.
Okay.
And it's open to all ages. Primarily, they would all have been, I would say, menopausal and beyond. But we have had some younger dancers come in as well, which has been absolutely delightful and refreshing. So, and we have time to share. Everybody has to bring something. So we have sharing, and like you say, the collaboration, the community. It's a joint trust, a lot of trust in each other, in the sacredness of the space, the energy. It's held as sacred. So what happens at Bali Sacred Dance Retreat stays at Bali Sacred Dance Retreat. But I have witnessed the most beautiful healings there, of people who have come with very, very severe illnesses. So it's very beautiful, very humbling, very humbling. Yeah. And Bali itself is a great teacher of humility. The people live, the traditional people out of the tourist areas, the traditional people live very, very simply and, without a lot of money. But they are very connected to the earth, and they are very ritualistic in their practices and their belief systems.
Well, and it's nice that you're giving people the opportunity, as we spoke about earlier, leaving your tribe and going into a different setting is so profound that at least for a week people can experience something very different, or a culture that's very different from their own.
Yes, yeah. We have an evening of the local dancers and the musicians. They all come up the mountain and sing and dance for us, and they get us up doing the Balinese dance, which is very tricky. But it's fun. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughter. We have tears. We have it's everything. It's a little microcosm of beauty and grace and divine delight, really.
Sounds beautiful.
Mm.
So you have a free gift for our viewers. So maybe you can tell them just a little bit about what that free gift is.
Well, I thought about this when you said about the free gift, and I feel that possibly the most useful thing that I can offer is some information, some suggestions, some ideas for rituals of respect. And I feel that if I can share that dimension of my own practice and it can circulate, then that will ripple out into a much wider energy amongst us women who are dancing into our communities. So I feel that's what I'm going to share.
Excellent. So Tricia will give you some ideas about how to bring the sacred into your life. And you have some up and coming events. You're doing the global water dances this year?
Yes, I am. That's a wonderful learning journey. I'm learning every week as I go, but I've gathered a group of non-dancers, just a group of community women. They are all women, no men came forward to dance, and who have professed themselves, you know, where I'm not a dancer. Yes, you are a dancer. There's no such thing as a non-dancer.
You're going to find that piece of yourself.
Yes, yeah. And so we are rehearsing for that and having a lot of fun. It's the journey to get there. It's not just being there. The journey we're taking is very sacred and beautiful. Mm.
And that's in June, yes?
Yes, that's in June.
Okay.
I'm about to start a little series of workshops for women over 55, just on introducing sacred dance, just giving them, you know, a taste and experience. So it will be like a smorgasbord, but quite what will be on the smorgasbord until I have got a flavor of them and where they are and their needs. You know, it needs to be tailored to them. So I have a whole wealth of possibilities that we could be dancing, but we'll see how that evolves. Yeah.
And will you be doing a retreat this year, or that's passed on?
Yeah, no, not this year. We didn't have a retreat planned. We did the 3 and then we took a break, but we have one hopefully planned for next year. So it's usually around the May full moon, which I think is May the 7th next year. So it's not set in stone, but that's about the time that we will be dancing in Bali.
Excellent. Okay, so take advantage of that free gift that Tricia has for you and get on her mailing list so you'll know when Bali is coming up again. And thank you, Tricia. Thank you for speaking and sharing your wealth of knowledge and your experiences with us today.
Thank you, Leslie, for organizing the summit and for, just being the techno wizard that you are, for coaching me in technology. Thank you.
Anytime.
And I look forward to dancing together sometime.
Yes, we were both in Connecticut together, but we didn't. I don't think we met at that time, but we were both there, so that was synchronicity of some sort. Yes.
Yes, I'm sure our paths will dance across each other.
I think so. Yes.
Thank you.
And
many blessings.
And thank you to the listeners. Bye-bye.